Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Den of Thieves, starring Gerard Butler, Pablo Schreiber, O'Shea Jackson Jr., and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, two Jacksons there, and directed by Christian Gudegast. Now, I have to confess, coming into this new movie, which looks interesting, I've never seen this movie before, so let's just get straight into it. In South Los Angeles, we start with a robbery led by Ray Merriman, played by Pablo Schreiber, while three guards, two in the convenience store and one in the trunk, as they start pointing guns at the guards outside and open the window from the front, and they try to steal their money until some cops come in and get heavy firearms aimed at them. And this opening sequence moves kind of slowly, and I wonder how did this get an almost 2.5 hour runtime, as the driver Donnie Wilson, played by Ice Cube's son O'Shea Jackson Jr. from Straight Outta Compton, who played his father in that movie, one day get there, drives them back to Wilmington as Bo Bosco Osterman, who's played by an actor I swear to God looked familiar, as I first saw him in Eminem's 8 Mile, which is another movie I'll get to one day, Fucked Up the Mission, as we also meet Ensign Levau, played by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, is in that group of cop killers. And I like the way this movie is shot throughout, as director Christian Gudegast does a good job filming this movie from start to finish. We meet Big Nick O'Brien, played by Gerard Butler, doing some investigating until Lobbin Bob from the FBI talks with Big Nick, as he doesn't like Big Nick, and he looks like it based on the performance. And Ray sees a picture and shows others who Big Nick is, as they used to play football against each other, which was hilarious, but at the same time an interesting choice, while Donnie works at a bar where he remembers everyone's orders, while Big Nick asks for some questions to Donnie without being a cop. And when Donnie gets off for the evening, he gets knocked the fuck out and taken to a hotel room with other cops as well as women around them. And so far, the movie is entertaining, as he wakes up and feels some wet clothes, which made me laugh. Big Nick talks with Donnie about something Donnie is going to do for the cops, including Big Nick, and I enjoy O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s presence after Straight Outta Compton to Godzilla, King of the Monsters, The Long Shot, and the Star Wars TV miniseries Obi-Wan Kenobi. And honestly, fuck Ingrid Goes West. I know he was in that movie, but I'm not a big Aubrey Plaza fan, I'll say. And Gerard Butler, after 300, has always been a badass in my opinion, while the acting is good in this scene, as Donnie tells Big Nick about Ray, and gets a job being a driver for some robberies. And Ray recently got them out of jail from what it looked like, as they first met at a party in some Hawaiian dude man's house, and shows him to drive and what cracked me up was Ray telling Donnie to drive, and Donnie says to put on his seatbelt, as he refuses at first. And Donnie shows how he's a crazy motherfucking driver, as Ray decides to put on his seatbelt, as that was brilliantly funny to me. Ray, Donnie, Ensign, Bosco, and others get prepared to pull off another heist, and Big Nick lets him go by saying, "We'll be in touch," as he takes a bus back to where he got kidnapped from. And we move on to San Pedro the next day, as Big Nick arrives at his own house, and his soon-to-be ex-wife Debbie asks where he's been, as she says he's never there for her nor his daughters, and she thinks he's having an affair and takes the daughters with her. And honestly, this bitch is crazy, as she leaves him and gets him served later in the movie, as she wants to divorce, as she's jumping to conclusions about a text message she must have tried to send to a stripper. While he loves his family, and Debbie tries to say things in front of the girls, like cursing in front of the girls, while she tells him not to curse in front of them, while she curses right in front of them. And I'm like, what? I'm not the kind of person who wants kids to hear cursing words until a little before they go into 7th grade. And if parents do that in front of their kids, to me, is very fucked up at so many fucking levels. But let's get back to the movie. While Donnie rides to their next heist, while the cops get leaded to Marcus Rhodes, whom we'll meet later in the movie, as they learn about him, and the dialogue is realistic for damn sure. Big Big Nick goes through how the bank Ray and his group is going to rob. And they talk about cameras in the building, and they talk about how they go through the accounts room and learn all about Ray's plan to rob the bank. And we learn $30 million gets shredded in the account room. And how the fuck can they shred money like that? Which doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to quote something that I'm not a big fan of in general. Everybody loves money except me, as I fucking hate money in general. Because everything costs it nowadays. Well, I'm now Bernie Sanders, but let's move on. And other reasons, and I don't wish to talk about in today's politics purposes, as this movie is entertaining me thus far, as I'm only 45 minutes into this 2-hour and 20-minute movie, and the thieves go through the plan to rob the bank they're going to rob, and Donnie goes to the building as part of their plan to rob the place by acting like a Chinese food delivery man, and a couple of ladies whom he delivers to a woman employee in the building named Sharon, and hides the next round on top of the bathroom stall, which is fucking disgusting, by the way. Don't ever do that. While Ensign talks to the prom date of his daughters and tells him to bring her home by 11:30 p.m. in front of his tough guy friends and to scare the hell out of his prom date, or her prom date, excuse me, which is amusing, as that was funny to me. I've seen too many movies where they do that kind of stuff, so it makes sense. In Torrance, Big Nick goes to a place to have dinner where Donnie happens to be at, and comes up to him and the whole football team they used to play back in college years in Long Beach, Paulie, to bother them and taunts them about how they used to crush him back in college football days. And after the dinner, the thieves interrogate how Donnie knows Big Nick in the first place, as Ray points the gun at Donnie like he was a damn cop, in which he's not, as Ray eventually believes him, and he's got eyes on Donnie, and the heist is on Friday, and that scene was fucking intense, while Big Nick humiliates himself with Debbie, as well as her date and her family members, as he tries to scare her date about if he touched his little girls in the weirdest way possible, he'll do something to him that won't be pleasant. And maybe this scene, it could be in the editing room floor, as it was fucking awkward, and that was kind of a drag to get through, in my opinion. Donnie visits with Big Nick at a store and wonder what the fuck was that, and says the heist is happening on Friday, but doesn't know where, and Donnie advised him to wear a vest, and next thing you know, he goes to the shooting range in which Ray and Ensign happens to be at, and I was on the edge of my seat during that scene, as it was so goddamn intense, and Big Nick sees their target practice as Big Nick goes to a strip club, and next day comes as Ray visits Big Nick in Ray's home as his wife Holly, which I didn't realize until second viewing it was Ray's wife, Holly, I'll say, that Big Nick ended up fucking his wife, as it was organized by Ray, and what a fucked up husband Ray is, despite he's a good villain, but that's just fucked up in so many ways. And that could have been in the editing room floor as well. Big Nick visits one of his daughters, McKenna, at school and during recess, and have a brief conversation until recess is over with, which felt very heartbreaking because she wants to come home with her father being around, and we'll see if she comes back in the sequel, but I highly doubt it based on the trailers, as I don't believe they're going to put the ex-wife in the next movie, as that could be annoying to me, as Big Nick cries because he's about to deal with the heist, and Big Nick gets to work as Donnie handles a gun for the first time ever, or in this movie, and both sides get prepared, and the cops arrive before the thieves do, and start the heist for the money, and they go to the bank manager and tells them to call the dispatch, and tells them to deliver $10 million or else a hostage is killed, and I'm really on the edge of my seat at this point. Big Nick tells the cops to stand down until Lob and Bob arrives, and they call the bank manager and get one hostage killed, as that was a stupid choice led by the cops, as this half can make questionable decisions sometimes, as it could irritate me for half of this second half, and the cops call back to bring them $10 million in a chopper. They say it will take 90 minutes for both things to happen, and suddenly Ray calls Big Nick to see if he's watching and eventually hang up and continue the heist. And there's a lot going on as Big Nick finds a way to get in the building and find a hostage in the bathroom and finds a hole in the sewer. And I can't believe how clever this movie can be during this sequence. But to be fair, it's not a Guy Ritchie movie. I'll say that much. Ray and others get to their second half of the robbery as Big Nick learns there's a second location of this robbery as this plot works for a cops versus thieves story, and the manager of the second building, Luigi, is checking on their money while Ray and Ensign wait for the heist to be successful. And when the character was named Luigi, I swear to God I thought the name from the Super Mario Brothers, as they release him and others to go on a break of some kind while Donnie is in one of the piles of money to take some out of there and hides while Sharon from that particular building calls about her Chinese food during her lunch break as her lunch is extremely late while she ordered an hour and a half ago, which is very irritating. And Donnie takes the shredded money. And what can I say about this half of the movie except it's fucking intense? Luigi gets back to work with his partner Junior, and Donnie is in the vents and gets out with the Chinese food he hid earlier in the movie when the building gets the accounting back. And Luigi tells Ray their bins were half full and to get something else in the future, and Donnie delivers the Chinese food without signing in, as these thieves need to think smarter than that. Otherwise, they'll be held suspect, which is a problem earlier in the movie, as it's a problem now in the second half of the movie. Meanwhile, Sharon tries to get her money back as her food tasted disgusting, as security almost holds him up, and Donnie ends up getting out of it clean, which is a problematic way to pull off the heist, as Bosco grabs the truck, and Big Nick and his cops pick up and attack Donnie, and I'm like, oh shit, this motherfucker has been caught, and I got scared for him. Big Nick asks where Ray is at, and he tells them where they load up the shredded money, and the thieves move as does the cops, and they both get stuck in traffic, and the thieves begin to load up their guns as the cops tell civilians to get down on as they cuff Donnie up and get into some serious firearm fight with each other as Ray kills some civilians as he tries to run away, which can be realistic for sure. Ray runs while Big Nick goes after Ray as Ensign gets shot at, but because 50 Cent has survived gunshots before, I believe he'll get back up while Ray is shot. And Big Nick will catch up to him and kill him as Ray dies off screen, and Donnie manages to escape as Lombin Bob tells Big Nick to quit smoking by chewing gum after losing this guy. But I get the feeling he's not going to chew on that gum, and we move on to Big Nick wondering what happened to Donnie as he got away, as he doesn't work at the bar anymore because he quit 2 days prior and he has a drink, Big Nick does, and as he decides to let Donnie go for now, and he was on the football team in Long Beach, as we pick up with him in England to serve a couple of Englishmen a drink as he lays for them and has a bad English accent. And the climax was clever as this was entertaining me, but how entertained was I? Let's get to the rating and find out, shall we? I'll give this movie a 7.0 out of 10. Despite this is the directorial debut for director Christian Gudegast, as he's written other movies before directing this movie, as he does a good job shooting this movie throughout. And this movie was hilarious and sometimes in a ha-ha kind of way, but at the same time, it makes interesting choices throughout, in my opinion. I was entertained for the entire 2 hours, 20 minutes, despite it was slow a couple of times. Some of it comes off rather entertaining, while Gerard Butler is always a badass after 300 and on. And I enjoy O'Shea Jackson Jr. after Straight Outta Compton, to their shows I've seen him in. And the acting was good, and the writing in this is realistic for damn sure. And it's sometimes very intense, and the only few scenes that could be in the editing room floor is the awkward scene as his ex-wife's family's house, and I'm talking about Big Nick, as well as that felt like a drag, as well as a couple of others. And I'm on the edge of my seat both times I watched the movie, as this was super gripping from start to finish, as there's a lot going on in this movie. And I couldn't believe how clever this was at times, as this is a recommendation for this movie. I just hope the sequel is just as good or better, as this was a good movie that works for a cops versus thieves movie, and the plot works, in my opinion. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Den of Thieves. And to Pantera. Excuse me, I almost forgot about that. Until then, don't rob any banks, kids.